Hi everybody, today I'm going to show you how to clean oil from the aperture blades of the Helios 44 and 44-2 lenses. I don't know if you can see there, this lens has just a small amount, only a small amount, just little traces of oil on the aperture blades. It's important to get as much of that off as we can because it can lead to internal reflections and play all sorts of tricks on your light. So we're going to clean this today and I'm going to show you how to do it. This is a nice easy lens to work on for the most part. Certainly this job is nice and easy on it. You will need some basic tools. You'll need one of these, a lens spanner. That is an absolutely basic requirement. You can't really get away without one of those because you have to remove the rings front and back from the lens, and that's best done with a lens spanner. It's not impossible to do it with a little tiny screwdriver, but you then run the risk of the screwdriver slipping and causing all sorts of scratches, and the worst case scenario is that's going to scratch the glass. So always use a lens spanner. Another thing we'll need is a little empty film can here. This is to put in our supply of this stuff, lighter fluid. Lighter fluid is a solvent and it will dissolve the oil away, so we're going to put some in there. Lighter fluid is generally very good for cleaning oil and dirt. It doesn't leave a residue, so it's nice and safe to use. Don't use it near any naked flames. If you're a smoker, don't smoke around it because it's volatile and it gives off a vapour. So it is highly flammable, so be very, very careful if you're using it. So the first step is, let's take our lens spanner and we're going to use the straight, that is the screwdriver ends of the lens spanner. You can see that the lens spanner has screwdriver ends and it also has pointy ends, but we're not going to use the pointy ends for this lens because this lens has slots rather than little cutouts that these points will fit into. So we're going to use the screwdriver shaped ends today. So to take out the front element of the lens, what we do is we locate the slots. We put our lens spanner onto the two slots like this, and we then apply firm, moderate pressure downwards. Make sure you've adjusted it to the right size, otherwise it will slip. And we just turn and the front element will unscrew. Once it's loose, you can lose your lens spanner and just undo it with your fingertips and out it comes. So there is the front ring. That's the retaining ring for the front element. So we'll pop that to one side. And all we do now is just invert the lens and the front element will fall out together with, so there's the front element, and we'll pop that over here. And so together with that will be this retaining ring that sits behind the front element. When you replace it, it's important. You'll notice that it has a collar on the running around its circumference, so it's wider at one end than it is at the other end. So when you replace it, it's important to put the narrow end back into the lens first. Yeah, so it goes in narrow end first. All right, so we'll pop that over here. So the next step is to take out the rear element. So we've got to completely disassemble the glass from this lens. It is a nice simple one to do, the Helios 44 and the 44-2. So it's the same at the back. We just pop on our lens spanner, give it a twist, and that rear element, in fact let me show you more clearly, that rear element we can now unscrew. So that's the rear optical block. So what we've got there then, that's the rear optical block. And so we've unscrewed, you can see two sets of points where the lens spanner can turn on. There's an inner ring with its own lens spanner attachment points and an outer ring. So what I've done is unscrewed the outer ring. If you unscrew the inner ring, it will disassemble this optical block in its entirety, and we don't want to do that. We just want to take the whole block out as one unit. So it's the outer ring that we actually turn. So that can sit here together with the rest of the glass and bits. And we can now see that the aperture ring is revealed. That's the rear view. We can see it there, and if we're lucky we can even make it move. There we go. So that is now open at the rear. There is still one more glass element inside the lens, and so we have to take out this element here. So all we do to get that out is turn it over and give it a bit of physical assistance. And there is the middle optical block from the lens. You can see that it goes in with the convex side facing towards the front of the lens. Okay, so we'll just put that one here. So there we are, we've now got our denuded Helios. All the glass is out and it's ready to give it a little bit of a clean up. Let's see if we can see that more closely. Can we see the oil on the blades there? There are just some very small traces of oil on those blades, which we're going to get rid of, and I'll show you how to do that. One thing that's important is put a splodge of tissue or some sort of absorbent material under the lens, because we are going to be throwing around the lighter fluid quite freely. And if I get any lighter fluid onto our lovely dining room table here, my life won't be worth living. So, first of all, we take our brush, and what we're going to do is soak it in lighter fluid and just get as much fluid onto those blades as we can. We've got the aperture blades fully closed, that is stopped down to f16. And we're turning in an anti-clockwise motion, so we're not going against the arrangement of the blades. We're not causing any disturbance. So soak plenty of that through there. You have to be very careful because the blades themselves are obviously very delicate. So apply only the lightest of pressure, and then we'll turn the aperture to and fro and distribute that nice and evenly. And then we turn over the lens again with the aperture on f16. and we'll do the same at the back, brushing in an anti-clockwise direction. Lots of lovely lighter fluid going in there. So splosh it all around, get as much in as you can. No worries about it going onto the glass because there isn't any glass in it at the moment. Best to do this in a well ventilated area because it does give off a vapour, and it's not terribly healthy to breathe too much of it. Okay, so now now we've got that on there. We just work the blades to and fro. You can see it's covered in lighter fluid. And so once we've done that, once we've got a good soak on there, we take one of these, well, several of these actually, cotton buds. You get these from any pharmacy. And these are now going to soak up the fluid. So all we do is, again, being extremely careful and delicate, just touch the cotton bud against the blades and move in an anti-clockwise direction. A spiral from the outside of the blades in towards the centre. And again, apply as little pressure as possible because this is a very delicate mechanism. So I'm just turning that anti-clockwise, and then we use the other end of the cotton bud. And we just keep doing that, turning, turning, turning. Same on the back, again in an anti-clockwise direction. Wipe as much of that solvent off there as we can. Lighter fluid will evaporate also, so while you're cleaning, the fluid is also evaporating, and you can probably see that this cotton bud does have some dirt on it. That's the old oil coming off. So we use another one. Clean it, clean it, clean it. Remembering not to apply too much pressure on these very delicate little parts. So the idea is just simply to keep going, keep cleaning, keep wiping that solvent off there for as long as it takes. So what I do is now and again I'll move the aperture blades fully open and fully closed just to make sure we're getting all of that solvent out of whichever recesses it might be hiding in, and onto the blades. Around the edge of the aperture mechanism are a series of rivets, which or pivots rather, that each individual blade pivots on. They can retain this fluid, and so it's a good idea to just dab each one like that. There are 8 of them, so we'll dab each one in turn. And clean it all up that way. So that's now looking much cleaner than it was. There is a little way to go, a little further cleaning to be done. but it's now looking much cleaner than it was. Might be easier to see on the back. So we should be able to see there now, that's looking much cleaner than it was. We're not quite there yet, but we are getting to within striking distance of nice clean blades there. As clean as Mr. Helios originally intended. So there we go, there we have now a nice clean lens. I'm just going to let that stand for a few minutes now. Right, so the lens is now clean, the aperture blades are now clean, and we are ready to reassemble. Before I put it back together, I'm going to change these rubber gloves that I'm wearing because they are certain now to be contaminated with oil and lighter fluid, which we don't want, so I'm going to put a pair of clean fresh rubber gloves on. Okay, so we're now ready to reassemble, and the first piece of glass to go back in is this mid cemented pair with the one with the dark band painted around it. And so to do this, we open up the aperture to f2. So we've got a fully open aperture. And the way I usually do it is tip the lens upside down and put it in this way. Just balancing it on my fingertips there. And just put it there on its little seating, it goes in nice and easily. And that's now in. So we now need to secure that, because obviously if we turn it upside down to work on the back, that's going to fall out. So we'll secure it by putting in this ring, the stepped ring, which remember goes in thin end first. So we'll just pop that in like that. That just sits in there. Place the front element in. This can be a little tricky, but there we are, that's gone in nicely. Make sure it's seated firmly. And it's now just a question of starting the thread. So I'm now holding it with my fingernails while I'm turning the body of the lens to screw it down. I'm holding it with my fingernails in the little cutouts that are intended for the lens spanner. So when we've got it all the way home, then we just nip it up tight with the lens spanner. Put that in the recesses and just give it a final turn. It shouldn't be very tight, but it should be tight enough that it's not going to work loose. So there we are, that's now in. Turn the lens over and put in the rear optical block. Pop it on there. And just turn it. Once you've got it started on the threads, it goes in nice and easily. Okay, and again, once it's home, we'll just nip it up with the lens spanner. Not too tight, just tight enough so that we know it's not going to come loose and fall out. So there we are, a nice clean set of aperture blades ready to go and shoot. No oil present, everything just as Mr. Helios originally intended. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.